Welcome to the Let's Go Racing Family Podcast, sharing our love for NASCAR, running, and just racing through life.
Hosted by Sebastian, Giovanni, Karen, Tony, and me, Johan.
Each week we'll talk about our view of the world through the lens of racing.
Welcome back to the Let's Go Racing Family Podcast. The Daytona 500 just wrapped up. We're in fact on site in a parking lot behind the JCPenney's near the track. It was a really
literally
fun race.
Across the street.
Yeah, just across the street. Not too far. The race itself was a ton of fun. The weather was really nice. Overall, really fun day. And I don't know if you can hear some noise in the background, but there's some fans that
There's
are still
still
excited.
fans lingering around, tailgating after the race.
And some folks that don't even realize what we're doing, but apparently want to be part of the podcast because they decided to blast their music right next to us. We had to relocate.
Maybe they were just giving us, some background music.
Maybe that's what it is. But they don't know that I don't have the budget to pay for that music, those music rights on YouTube and on our podcast platform. So, but anyway, yes, we are here just after an unbelievable Daytona 500.
Incredible race.
Not only was the racing fun, the fans were there. I mean, 100. What was the number they kept quoting?
Well, Joey Logano said 130,000.
130,000 people. I mean, and it
They
was full.
said it was full. It was.
It
Yeah,
was.
it
They
was
said it
packed.
was sold out, and it
Sold
was
out.
packed. It was, It was
and,
a full
and the
house
weather was
today.
great.
The winner of
Weather
the
was
race, I'm not going to
fantastic.
say his name. The winner of the race, I'm not going to say his name because we'll talk about that later. But the winner of the race said that it's packed.
Yeah, it was packed. It was definitely packed. I think there was a lot of
Filled up.
excitement around the race and just around NASCAR in general. So I thought that was pretty cool to see in person after, the last couple of years. So yeah, let's get into it. It was 70 degrees. It was a beautiful Florida day.
It's nice and sunny. You had a nice breeze.
No rain this year because
Not-
we've had
yeah,
rain the
no
last
rain delay,
few
so-
years. So this was fantastic.
That
But
was
yes,
great.
clear blue skies, the weather, it was warm enough to stay warm. And then when the sun started going behind the track, it started getting a little chilly and we had our jackets. So it was perfect weather for
Yeah,
the
it was
500.
really good because, when we went to the fall race in 2021 for the Coke Zero Sugar 400, we brought our jackets, but we couldn't really wear them because it was
It
hotter.
was so hot.
But now it's in February, so we can wear the jackets, and it was really chilly.
And speaking of the jackets, Johan had a special guest with us, your best bud, right?
Yep.
And he was wearing another jacket.
Me and him were pulling for Chase.
You both were pulling for Chase. It
Yep.
was a lot of fun
When
to
we
take
saw
him.
when we saw him on the leaderboard, in the top 15, we're like, he has a chance. And then when he fell out, it was like, oh man. And then we're like, he has a chance.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
whole time I kept hearing you guys on the radio. You and him were rooting for it, rooting for Chase to win. But it was definitely a lot of fun, and it was great to spend that time with our friends as well
Yeah,
and
and
share it with them.
the race, watching the action between the drivers, it was really good. It had that good balance of just normal, calm racing and then tense pack racing. It was definitely, I think, one of the top tier Daytona races.
I think there were even some portions where it felt like I was watching an older race back when they had the Cars of Tomorrow, where you could literally see them doing 2x2 tandeming. And we saw that a lot in the race. And I was like, this is really cool. It's kind of like hybrid racing. Very fun race. I'm loving the new package. It was really cool. But
And the cars it sounded louder.
It was
They
a lot
sounded
louder.
They did sound loud. Yep.
with the weather and how the cars went, because I thought it was a race from 2016, 2017 with the Gen 6 car, because the skies were blue, and in 2016, 2017, 2018, the skies were blue. The racing was actually packed because last year's 500, it was mostly single filed. We actually got 2x2 close racing. It was actually a fun, exciting race.
It was pretty intense. There were a few times where the leaders, so in first and second place, and they were being pushed. I was so nervous because they get so incredibly close, and I was like, man, they're gonna turn them, And we did experience, a wreck early on. I think it was at lap 64 where
It was
right around the end of
63.
stage
yeah,
one.
where that actually happened, and that was the 21.
Yeah, he went
Harrison
flipping.
Burton.
Harrison Burton got turned.
I was
a
so
bit,
sad
and
to see that.
yeah, that was
because
very
he
sad.
He was leading
doing
at one
well,
point
too.
early
He was
on.
doing so well, but it was scary because he got turned and his car flipped
upside down.
flipped
That was
upside
surprising.
down. But I was telling you, Tony, that I think he didn't fully barrel roll because the car that was coming behind him kind of stopped him and bounced him back, and he landed back on his tires. But yeah, it was intense racing, and like I said, unfortunately, in lap 63 there was that wreck and a few cars were taken out early on.
This is what I saw from my perspective of the crash. I was just watching on the big screen, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Because we were seeing it from the bumper of Denny Hamlin, and I see Kyle Busch, who was in front of him, slamming. I was like, "Oh, that's weird." And then I see Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin spinning, and then I look over and see on the backstretch a car flipping, and I was like, "Oh, mama!" That reminds me of the Xfinity race crash.
Yeah, that I did see on the other side, which used to be known as, well, it's still the super stretch, but there used to be seats on that side, is where all that action took place. And you could literally across Lake Lloyd, I saw a car flip. And then when you see the replay, you saw that it was Harrison Burton, which, he showed something early. It was early, but he did show that he's not afraid to drive up there and was leading at one point. So that was actually pretty exciting, especially after we had met him. I told you guys, I didn't really know. I knew about him because of his dad, but I didn't know too much about him. But after we met him in Charlotte in January, he was a really cool guy. He was really nice to Johan, very nice to me when we met him, and was funny and just relaxed. So I was kind of pulling for him. So when I saw him pull that car up front, the Wood Brothers car, I was actually pretty excited. I thought he was going to do something. So a little sad that
if he
got
didn't
mixed
crash,
up in
I
that.
think he would have had a shot to win. He would have got top 10.
And up into that point, it was pretty much single file. So you were talking about hybrid race. It was pretty much single file.
No, it was like
Well, that's the thing.
was-
It had all these elements. There was single file, but then you had the pack racing where they were 2x2 or even 3x3, and then there was the occasional tandeming.
And they weren't as aggressive early on. So for the first 50-something, 60 laps,
they were
and
very
then that's
relaxed.
when that wreck happened, and then you saw it. The one thing I did want to mention is talking about the different lines and the competitiveness. When the race started, you felt like there was one line that was definitely doing better, and then all of a sudden, was it the inside or the outside line that started moving?
I think it was in the inside line.
Yeah.
Yeah, the inside line.
I would always know that the outside line was very far apart from the inside, and I was like, all right. The first time they got a run, I was like, oh, I don't think the inside line stands a chance. And I saw them get a run. It was Kyle Busch who was doing that. He got a run. I was like, oh. And then when it happened again, the inside line was behind. I was like, all right, they're coming back.
Yeah, when you saw that two different lines were able to drive up and be competitive, I knew that this was going to be a very exciting and very competitive race.
And indeed it was.
You were able to see, actually, the one thing I liked about this race was that there were people that were going to the front. So there were several times where we saw, drivers that were able to move towards the front. At one point, Daniel Suarez was in 9th place. Some of the other drivers, you saw different drivers moving up, throughout the race, because when you got to the end of the race, people that weren't up there were up at the front, so there was movement in this race, which I really liked. Yeah. It was enjoyable to see that instead of just seeing the same people or everybody staying in the same position.
Yeah. So tell me, we'll go around real quick. Who early on that got knocked out surprised you? So who was the first guy that got knocked out early on that was like, wow, I thought he was going to basically be there at the end, and
I think
got wrecked.
I think for me it was Harrison Burton, or even some of the other guys who had to race their way in, Jacques Villeneuve. He had trouble just early on, and I was expecting him to, maybe make it on to the end, which he did, but he was under a lot of laps and was very underperformed.
He lost the draft at one point, I think.
Yeah, he was by himself for a while. One that got knocked out in that first wreck that I thought had a chance to be at the end of the race in contention was Ross Chastain, because he did pretty well in the duels and the practices and all of that. He had a pretty good car. So I thought that he would have a good chance to do well at the end.
You know, it's interesting. The on-track announcer, when she was interviewing different drivers before the race, she had interviewed Ross Chastain and asked him specifically, you know, is this your day? Like, could this be your day to win? And he's like, you know what? That's not for me to say right now because we haven't even started the race.
Yeah.
And, you know, but he was positive. He thought he had a shot. And he even said that, you know, had strong car and had done pretty decently leading up to the 500. But yeah, unfortunately, when he was walking out of his car, you know, for them to tow it, I was like, man, that didn't work
That
out.
hurt.
Like, yeah, that hurt.
Who I was shocked about getting crashed early that I thought who was gonna make it to the end? Denny Hamlin. He got
You
crashed.
took mine. That was the guy I was gonna
He
say.
got crashed really early in that
Yeah.
in that big one.
Eh.
Like it's just so surprising when Denny Hamlin asked me that question, in Charlotte. I was like, he's probably gonna make the top 5. Well, now I know if he asked me that question again, now I know what the answer is. 2022.
Yeah, that was a big surprise. That was actually the guy that I was thinking about when I was asking you the question was Denny Hamlin making it, you know, not even making it halfway.
He
Was
didn't even
that was
make a
early on, right?
stage.
It was before the half.
Yeah,
He
it
didn't
was,
even
Yeah,
finish
I think he was
stage.
in that. He was part of that wreck
Yeah.
at lap
Yeah.
60.
So was
3.
William Byron.
He was in it. Yeah.
He got taken out early.
Oh my goodness. If I'm Hendrick, you know, between him and Bowman and
Larson.
then Larson later in the race.
Chase had the
And
best
Elliott.
finish for Hendrick.
And where did he
But
finish?
still,
Tenth.
none of them really ran.
He had
too
trouble.
well for
I thought it would be
most of the
Larson
race.
getting a top 5 finish, and then I thought Chase would get like.
Larson finished 31st.
I will say that for
He
like for the
I think so. He finished in the 30s.
I will say that for the Hendricks cars doing so well at qualifying and the duels, they didn't race as well as I
you
thought they were going to based on that performance.
It always happens. Like in recent years, whenever the Hendrick cars win the pole, they always get crashed out.
So I think it's kind of interesting. I don't know if you guys saw this on social media leading up to the race, but I think it was Saturday or maybe it was Friday. Kyle Busch was taking a photo wearing a shirt that said the most expensive day of the year. And I think it was because of the fact that he's an owner and the cars wreck all the time. And I think he need to give that shirt to Mr. Hendrick because he did not have a great day like you thought. His cars were capable of going 1, 2, 3, 4. And that did not happen.
They did not.
You know, speaking of Kyle Busch, to be honest, I really don't have any drivers that I was surprised didn't make it to the end. But Kyle Busch was the driver that surprised me did make it to the end because he was involved in that early wreck with Byron and Burton, and he did get damaged, but he was able to come back and still be up there. He even missed getting wrecked with later incidents. And he was up there battling for the lead, and he got a top 10 finish.
I thought he was done in that crash. I saw on the, as I said, we were watching on the bumper of Denny Hamlin. I was like, oh, there goes Kyle. He's done. All right, bye-bye, Kyle. Hope you're having a nice week until you go to Fontana.
So, stage 1 ended with that big crash, and the winner, who was just coincidentally lucky enough to be in the right position at the right time, was Martin Truex Jr. And he also won stage 2.
That was a close one. Stage 2.
It was. It really was.
It was him and Joey Logano, and of course we were rooting for Joey Logano.
It was because of Chase Briscoe.
Yeah, Briscoe. So actually, first of all, Joey Logano, despite having to go to a backup car, performed very well. And he seemed like he could have had a shot. And in that stage, on the last lap, for some reason, Chase Briscoe, who was under a lap, if
No,
not
he
going
wasn't.
to be,
He was about
to get lapped, decides that instead of moving out of the way and letting the cars that are significantly faster than him go by, he sat in front of them and literally held up the leader. So much so that Brad Keselowski, who was leading at the time, lost the lead. So Joey, when he took the lead, Briscoe was just sitting in front of him, and Joey had so much power, he was literally pushing Briscoe ahead, which of course, unfortunately slowed him down. And that's why Truex was able to pass him. But still, he was doing really well for a majority of the stage too.
Well, that he didn't get passed by Truex, so he ended up going a lap, but he got the free pass. So
He didn't even get the free pass that stage.
No, he did, cause
He didn't.
He didn't get it.
Landon Castle did.
oh yeah, you're right. Well, on to stage 3.
This is where the race got real interesting. Obviously, last 70 laps, the sun was setting, track temp changing. This is where it's going to get intense. This is where it got real.
And Dad, you predicted that there were going to be at least 2 to 3 cautions in that
Always
stage 3.
happens. I felt Larry McReynolds talking. You know how he always has the stats.
Larry's trends.
And Larry's trends.
I was waiting for him to kick in, and then I realized, oh, wait, we're here.
Yeah, we're at the race. We're not watching TV. But yeah, I just felt like those last 10 laps, it doesn't matter how clean it is. That's when the cars get really aggressive and those things kind of happen. And so, yeah, I figured, and lo and behold, look what happened.
But I will say, though, despite the fact that there were 3 races towards the end in that last stage, there really wasn't a big one that took out a ton of cars. So to me, that was a good thing. Like I enjoyed being able to see more cars finish the race than be out of the race. Yeah, it stunk to see some of these cars, wreck. Like Joey got in one of those late wrecks and got stuck in the he went right through the grass and got stuck. And at one point we were nervous that he wasn't gonna be able to turn the car or get it driving. They had to push him, have the tow truck push him out of the grass. Then he kind of got stuck on the banking, and then he went back on the track.
Joey wrecked. Well, kind of. I mean, he didn't get too much damage.
No, he didn't get damage. He had lost a tire. And one of the things that they were saying is that these new tires don't have an inside liner. So when their tire goes down or they lose a tire, it's hard for them to get going. And
That's what
so
happened to Joey.
he couldn't get his car moving and rolling. And so the tow truck had to finally, they said on the radio that he asked for the tow truck. He told the spotter, tell the tow truck to push me through the grass into pit row. And he was able to finally get in there. And he even had to put his car in backwards.
Yeah.
In his pit. So his pit crew had to do all their stuff backwards.
And I remember when Joey actually got his car repaired, he turned it on, turned it right around, and everyone was cheering, and it just felt really good. I mean, unfortunately, he didn't end up winning, but at least he finished in one piece, and I was really happy. And that made me feel pretty good. The fact Joey was able to keep going, especially when his car couldn't move, he just kept going and didn't get out.
Yeah.
And you know what? Again, with the amount of wrecks that could happen, you never know. If he can just stay not get down as many laps, you could potentially make him up, depending on how many.
Which
cautions.
he did eventually, but
yeah.
But another one of our guys that I was so happy that he finished the race and was not out early like he was last year was Daniel Suarez. He unfortunately lost some positions and laps on the track because he got penalized for exiting the pit too quickly. But at least he finished the race. So
where did he end up finishing?
He
18th.
And was he on the lead lap?
Yep.
You said?
he finished on the lead lap. Yeah.
Yeah, I
He
was
did.
surprised because
He went down 2 laps.
2 laps under.
It could
and
happen
then-
because in the Xfinity race, I was watching it yesterday. Anthony Alfredo, who had a problem early, his window came out flying,
Uh-huh.
so he had to pit. He was 3 laps down, and he finished 10th.
Wow. So it could happen.
Yeah, and I think Daniel Suarez was actually the highest finishing driver of our race picks this week.
Yeah.
That's wild. So I just realized as we're doing the podcast in a parking lot across from the World Center of Racing, this isn't our normal setup. And I realized that 2 out of our 3 cameras may have frozen. I'm not 100% sure if that's what's going to be seen. So there's a possibility that as you're watching our podcast on YouTube, you'll notice 2 out of the 3 screens have frozen, but they're act as stills today. So I was just figuring that out. So anyway, we're back again live, and we're going to finish up this segment of the podcast talking about the last few laps of the 2022 Daytona 500 and the history that we witnessed.
So this Daytona 500 had some really interesting last laps. As most big races do, especially at restrictor plates like Daytona, there was a lot of carnage and a lot of intense racing. For a majority of the last few laps, it ran green up until a couple of wrecks, and there was one, I think, right before we were going to finish the race, which unfortunately involved Bubba Wallace, who was doing really well. He was leading a few laps. And by the way,
there was actually a section of laps where it was Bubba in one lane and Cindric in the other, and they just kept trading places.
Like I said, the tandem, you had Cindric and Blaney together, and then Kyle Busch pushing Bubba Wallace.
That was awesome.
That was so cool. You could see the team coordination between Penske, but then the manufacturer coordination between Bubba and Kyle. And Kyle didn't have to help Bubba. He could have left him out to dry, but he helped him, and it was really cool.
Well, honestly, 2311 and Joe Gibbs are actually sort of aligned because they actually do the same meetings together. Bubba and Kurt go to Joe Gibbs meetings.
Well, they acted like two teammates, and I was
really
very impressed. What did you think, Sebastian, seeing two of your favorite drivers hooking up? And I literally thought at one point, yo, Bubba or Kyle, one of them is going to get their first 500.
I know. I was so happy to see them, but then I was also so scared because I was like, oh no, are they going to wreck each other?
Yeah, that did cross my mind. But the way Kyle was driving, it did not. He was driving really strong, but keep pushing Bubba. It seemed like he was committed to being a good teammate in that situation, and they were impressive. I was totally impressed, and I was like, all right, we're about to see this man get his first 500. Either Kyle or Bubba Wallace.
So, yeah, going back to the unfortunate wreck, Bubba had gotten hit by, who was it that spun out?
Ricky Stenhouse.
Who was also up there.
Ricky Spinhouse.
Yep. I was actually waiting. I'm surprised he didn't cause too many wrecks except for that one. But he did end up hitting Bubba Wallace on the side, which took out his side panel. And the team was debating whether or not he should come in and get it repaired or stay out. And he gambled, stayed up there, and it nearly paid off.
It almost did.
Yeah,
and everyone was worried.
That was quite a final lap.
It was.
It was Cindric and Bubba, 1 and 2.
Well,
and
this is actually how it went. White flag happens. Cindric's leading. Kozlowski at the top. Blaney at the bottom. So down the backstretch, and then
Kozlowski was up there.
Yeah, and then into the final in the trioval, Cindric pulls a block on Blaney and Brad, who leaves room for Bubba, and then Bubba, it was so close to win the Daytona 500.
Bubba went up, and literally, I saw him try and bump. He got Austin Cindric a little bit loose, and it gave Bubba just the shortest window to get right next to him, but it was just too late, and unfortunately, Bubba lost, but Austin Cindric did win, and it was honestly a really cool 500.
It was really cool and an awesome finish. Yeah. What did I say, Karen, when that happened? I said, if this was in Talladega...
Oh, yeah, Bubba would have won.
Bubba would have won.
Because of the location of the
start-finish line and the momentum that he had, because he actually did pass him, but after they had passed.
I mean, even though, I thought he won because of how much momentum he gained, and it was nearly a photo finish.
Yeah. And it was just the unbelievable part, and I don't know if you guys mentioned this, was that in the wreck before, he lost a huge part of his fender. Mm-hmm. And now it looked like an open wheel, but it good for him. The part of the fender that got taken off wasn't the front. So it didn't
really affect his aerodynamics, especially
in that
That's what everyone was worrying about and why they were contemplating whether or not to go in. But
I'm glad he stayed out there. I'm sure Michael Jordan was up in the suites and he was getting ready to go smoke a cigar and take the Daytona 500 as an owner. That would have been unbelievable.
Oh, that would have been so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, his birthday was, I think, Friday or Thursday. Yeah. Michael Jordan's birthday. The NBA All-Star game is actually happening right now. And then, Jordan possibly his car came in second. So after all of that, even though he didn't win, he still had an impressive week of speed weeks. And Bubba Wallace brought it home second. So he's going to have I think he's going to have a really big season, especially with Kurt Busch being his teammate. And I really do believe in Kurt Busch. He maybe had a little bit of a reputation as a troublemaker earlier on in his career, but having met him this year and having seen him mature over the years, like Kurt Busch is gonna be a really strong teammate for Bubba Wallace. And
He really is.
if Bubba gets back into victory lane, which I believe he will, I think Kurt Busch is going to play an important role, whether it's just being a great teammate or literally helping him there. He just wasn't up there this week. It would have been unbelievable to see the two Bushes and Wallace up there. I think they would have all hooked up and then settled it between the three of them, you know? But anyway.
But congratulations, Austin Cindric.
He got his Daytona 500 in his rookie year.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. I forgot about that. He's a rookie, guys. He's a rookie, and he won the Daytona 500. Unbelievable.
So, yeah, congrats, Austin. I'm glad you won, and I hope you have many more seasons to come that could potentially win you another 500.
I think this was the first time the 2-car won the Daytona 500. Because did Rusty Wallace ever win the Daytona 500?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Because Brad didn't. And then I don't know if Rusty did. So that means I think
Rusty would have been the one, right? If anyone. That's a great question. Although I think there was a 2. I don't know why, and I don't know who it was, but I'm thinking back because they had a lot of like historical footage for the 500, and I thought I saw 2. We'll have to look that
We'll
up.
have to look that up and
We'll
see.
have to look that up and see what that was. But yeah, so just last comments on the 500.
it was a really good race.
Incredible
Good.
race. Congratulations to Austin Cindric and Team Penske, and happy birthday, Mr. Penske.
Yeah, happy birthday, indeed. One other thing I want to ask each of you real quick. If you're talking to someone or possibly our listeners that have never been to a NASCAR race, and now again, you've been to races, but to be at the Daytona 500, to be at these races and to be with these fans, like, what would you tell them of why they need to come here? It'll completely change the way they view the sport.
I would say come to the Daytona 500 because it is such a big event. It doesn't feel like any other race except maybe the championship or the All-Star race or the Clash. And it is something you need to experience to get into. I would just give you advice. There's going to be some weird stuff going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't get into all that, but yeah, it's when you get 130,000 people together in the hot sun, there's
bound to
there
be
can
some.
be some craziness. That can happen in football games too, and other sports. But yes, Sebastian, I agree with you. To me, the Daytona 500 is at the level of a Super Bowl. It's at the level of the NBA Finals. I mean, it's a big deal. It's a huge event. I mean, we talked a lot about this, and when we got interviewed this week, and I want to talk about the next segment, is that Karen, you remember saying that, you knew about the 500, even though you didn't know about a full NASCAR season, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, I always watched the Daytona 500, but I didn't really follow a season. I didn't realize there was a season, but coming and seeing it in person was a whole different experience than watching it on TV. Yeah. So that's the one thing I will say. If you ever have a chance to see a race in person, it's a completely different experience. And I think that you'll just love the sport.
Yeah. Yeah, I think your buddy, that's what I'm thinking, that Johan, your buddy who watched the race with us, the fact that he saw it in person, I think he's going to think about NASCAR differently.
He did say it's better to watch it in person.
It completely changes it for you. And that's, I think, the biggest thing for our family. Now, we enjoy watching it at home, and because we can't go to all the races, but I definitely think it's exciting to be here for it all. So, all right, any last comments on the 500 this year and the new season that, we have an exciting season ahead of us.
Yeah. We'll have to see what NASCAR brings us in the weeks to come.
Yeah, it's going to be an amazing season.
All right.
All right, let's talk about these race picks that we made this morning on our way up here.
Yes.
Yep.
If I'm correct, none of us got points today.
I don't think so.
None of our drivers
I don't have
finished.
the top 25
none
finish list in front of me.
None of our drivers finished in the top 10. I can definitely tell you that.
I still
picked
technically
Larson.
won this week.
I picked Larson, and I don't even know where he finished because
31, I think
he was
30 something. Yeah, it was 30
he
something.
just finished really, really bad. So
I got Suarez, and he was 18th. So unless you guys have a higher driver, I think I technically won
I
this
picked
week.
Logano.
So
He
you
got
got the highest.
21st.
I picked Justin Haley. I think
We don't even know where he finished.
He finished in the 30s
Did he
because
even finish?
this is what killed him.
On four
Justin
wheels?
Haley fell back like at the beginning of
Yeah,
the
No,
race.
this is what killed him because early on he lost a tire.
Oh yes,
That-
he was the one whose tire fell
Yeah.
off and going into turn 1.
Which, by the way, I wonder how quickly NASCAR is talking to Goodyear
about putting those
about putting
inner
those
liners
thing
back
back
on.
on.
liners back in the tire. So anyway, we'll see if that changes before the next restrictor plate. I had Kevin Harvick,
Where did he
and
finish?
I don't remember where I know he
30th.
was up
All
there.
I
He was
know
in
is he got
30th.
wrecked.
He
I
was up
was-
there at the end, but
I
then he got
was-
involved in that
I
wreck
was
and then
thinking
disappeared.
he was going to pull off a Mr. Where did you come from again and do it, and then he fell back. So yeah, I think you did have it. In fact, actually, as we're walking out of the track tonight, I mistakenly remembered. I thought you had picked Bubba Wallace, Sebastian. I thought you picked Bubba.
I don't know
So
why
I'm like,
I
oh
thought he
my
picked
gosh,
him too.
Sebastian got a top 2 right off the bat. But no, you had picked Daniel Suarez, and again,
Still, I got the best
He did the
points.
best of all
So,
4 of us.
I'll
or
be
the 5 of
picking
us.
for Fontana.
Yeah. All right. So that does it for this week with the Daytona 500. Sebastian, where is NASCAR going next week?
NASCAR is going to be going to Fontana, where they will be hosting the last race on the current version of the track before it becomes the Bristol of the West.
That's right. I forgot about that. That's
It's a
going to
new
be
revamp.
That's going to be a big deal. It's a little sad because that was one race that I always wanted to go see. And we had plans last year, but unfortunately, because of COVID, we had to change those plans and we were not able to go. And then this year it just didn't work out. And so unfortunately, we will not. So hopefully, when they reconfigure that track, right? Because that's the last one. And then as soon as that race is over, they're going to start making changes. We'll be able to go to Fontana and check that out. So, and you never know with the Coliseum and what they did there, maybe there'll be another race, a points paying race in LA. So a very unconventional episode, but I think this was a lot of fun. We had a little trouble getting started, but we ended up with a nice quiet parking lot now.
As Dad always says, it is what it is.
It is
It
what
is
it
what it
is. Yes. So with that, Giovanni, why don't you take us out?
That's going to wrap up this week's episode of Let's Go Racing Family Podcast. Thank you so much for listening on in. If you enjoyed, consider subscribing, following all of our socials, and, liking our video. Let's Go Racing Family, out.